watch this later. Cool. Good. So our little welcome to Book Club, and this month's book, which is can't see. Look at that. It's magic. Can't see the book, can you? Ooh, that's weird, isn't it? No, our head disappears. I can't actually get you to see the book. How clever is this computer sort of blocking out background? So anyway, the book is actually we'll move on to here. So you've all been to Book Club before. You know, it's really about continued personal development. Give us the reason to read a book, but I think one of the big things about reading books is then the ability to discuss it. Not just read it and then, as Andy said, I said, what did you like about the book? And, I read that about a few weeks ago and forgotten about it. So by talking about it just refreshes us and also picks up things that you'll read it and you'll miss bits other people pick up. So it's a really good way just to reinforce that learning. So this is our book. Death by Meeting, Patrick Lencioni. Now, I don't know, has anybody read his first book, which was Five Dysfunctions of a Team? So that's another very good book that's worth a read. And the style is quite nice. I always liked his way of writing, where he's got the story and then does a bit of an explanation at the back. And in a way, when I wrote my book, that sort of story and then the explanation was the sort of theme that I decided to take. So I do owe Patrick some thanks for inspiring me to write the book in that particular style. So and the other thing, though, you can only buy his book in hardback. So all his books are only hardback, which was why he chose to do that. But he's obviously got expensive taste. So this is him. I was actually surprised. Actually, he was only born in '65. So a lot of these authors are sort of well in their 70s, 80s now. But he's actually still quite young. Same age as my wife. So and he has actually written a lot of books. And I think Five Temptations of CEO are quite good. I've read that one. I quite liked his title, Three Signs of a Miserable Job. So I get that one sometimes. And Three Big Questions for a Frantic Family. So if you've got kids and things, that might be a good read for the family as well. So quite a prolific author, and it's a pretty unique style. So really. I was trying to think, normally books are quite easy. You just go through chapter by chapter by chapter, but this book was a bit more difficult than that because the chapters are actually probably a page long. So it didn't really work. So I thought there's clearly two parts. One is the fable, the story, and then there's the sort of, I suppose, the science bit and the explanation of what we need to do. So I thought we'd spend the first half of the meeting just looking at the story, going through, the plot, etc. And then I think the meat of it is around a bit about where he explores a different way to put meetings together. So it's probably good to start off with, for each of us, did you find some affinity, when you were reading this? I certainly read it with the thought of, I've been there, I've done that, I've been in meetings just like that, and occasionally I still find myself in meetings like that. So Sabrina, what did you get out of the story of Casey and Will, really, who are sort of the main characters?
I think this was probably the most gripping business book that I've ever read. It was waiting for me when I got back from holiday, and I thought, right, I've got just over a week to get that read, must crack on with it. It was so gripping that I basically couldn't put it down, the fable bit. I just had to keep going. See, how these characters were going to turn out. I alternated between laughter and groans, and it was just so resonant of not so much now, but the old days at A.E. Roberts, where we used to have a management meeting once a week on a Monday evening. I realised very quickly that nobody took any notice of an agenda, nobody read any minutes, people just turned up because they had to. It was absolutely like that fable. So I thought, this is going to be good. I'm going to get a lot from this, and I did.
Cool, good. Bruce, what about you?
Yeah, like Sabrina, I found it really entertaining read. I only picked the book up on Monday, and I was thinking, oh, am I going to get through this? But actually, each day it was something to really look forward to, and I got through the book really easily. So it's very interesting read. I think I think on the meeting side, there's definitely lessons to learn, and there's definitely things that we can improve on the way that we do our meetings. But certainly for a lot of the meetings that we have, I don't go in feeling dread or feeling they're going to be really boring. I often enjoy those meetings, but there's certainly things we can do to change the format a bit and change when we do things. There are improvements we can make. So it's definitely provided some food for thought.
Cool, good. Gary?
Hi, like Sabrina and Bruce, it's a nice easy read. I sat down one Sunday, started it, and then I think a couple of hours later I'd finished it. It was it's quite easy to flow through and go through. You could see a lot of the corporate style. Everybody's been there, seen there. I've been to meetings and for years and years and years, and don't think I've ever seen an agenda or minutes, and so it just says nobody's really interested in these sort of things. So it did resonate, and put a positive spin on things as well going forward.
Cool, good. Andy?
I think most of it's probably been said by now, but certainly some of it did resonate. I thought it was particularly interesting around sort of separating out the more sort of strategic stuff and the operational stuff, and not to kind of mix the two, and make sure you allow enough time for sort of the more strategic discussions and that sort of thing, because we try and have a relatively short strategic meeting on a weekly basis, but that it always ends up turning into discussing some urgent operational matter, and we never seem to get that far with strategy. So that sort of thing resonated, and it's good to see some suggestions as to what to do about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I've just picked out a bit of the key points that jumped out at me, during the story part. So the first one was this sort of thought about, it starts the book and the business is going well. It's there's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. And for me, being okay just leads to complacency. It leads to a lack of energy. When I go into organisations that are challenged, something's happened, something's gone wrong, there's a real energy in them, and they're sort of okay, they may not be doing the right things, but there's a lot of energy moving it forwards. You go into a business that's doing really well and has been doing really well for some time, and that energy just goes. That is just, it's almost flat. They're sort of going to meetings, well, nothing's broken, so what is there to talk about? We just talk about the same old things. Profits are the same as last month, and sales the same as last month, and we're doing what we did last month, and and so that's where I think where the premise of this book came from. That if you go back to the reptilian brain, if you're moving away from pain, then the adrenaline flows, you're kicked into action, you're more likely to hold people to account, you're more likely to have some conflict. I'm just dealing with a company at the moment that's struggled through COVID, has come out of it, and things just haven't gone quite as well as they should have done. And they're really sort of driving forwards now. Those meetings are far more dynamic than they probably ever have been. So, have you got some experience of perhaps not sort of the business you're in, but businesses in the past where you've sort of felt that because we're not going anywhere and the targets aren't that compelling or scary, that we end up in this sort of flatness of the business as a whole, the structure, the communication, and especially in this case the meetings. Have you done that, Gary? You've probably had quite a bit of experience.
No, that's it. Like you say, when everything's okay, it's like I say, it's part of the job, isn't it? It's something to crack on with and go through. Like reading the book, you have to add some drama and excitement to the meeting, sort of thing. The conflict the good meetings are the ones where you're trying to solve a problem, where everybody's inputting and shouting and arguing and trying to find some sort of consensus to move forward. Other than that, it's like you say, it's same old, tick the box, let's get on with it.
Yeah. So there's that sort of element of, if we don't have a goal, if we're not setting something that's a big, hairy, audacious goal, our lovely BHAG, then it's not going to happen. You're not going to get that drama, that conflict. Go back to when he talks later on about a movie. If a movie was just about a family getting up in the morning, going to work, coming home, eating eating tea, going to bed, it wouldn't be that exciting, would it? There's got to be some drama in there that's going to happen that keeps you on your edge of your seat to actually watch the movie. So that's the first thing I think we've got to understand is, as a leader, of our businesses, we have to inject that. If it's not there automatically because of the situation, in a startup business, it's generally there because, everything's new, fresh, you're learning. But in a mature, established business, it's very easy to get into this comfort zone and just, tick along. So as a leader, we've got to be able to inject that sense of, that big, hairy, audacious goal, either move away from towards something that, people go, I don't know how to do that. That is a bit scary, a little bit sort of, don't know what the outcome's going to be. If you watched a film and you knew the outcome, well, it wouldn't be that exciting. But if you don't know which way it's going to go, then, it's far more compelling to actually watch. And then the second one then was meeting beliefs. So, Andy, when you have your meetings with your team, do you feel that some of the team members have these beliefs around meetings, these sort of negative beliefs?
Yeah, there's a handful of people who don't necessarily see such benefit and value in meetings.
Yeah.
I know what I've got to do. I'd be most efficient if I just cracked on and did it. Meetings just using up time. I could be, getting the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how, when you read the book, how did you feel that you should deal with these sorts of people? Did it sort of highlight different things?
Obviously, the things about keeping the meeting engaging, useful. I think some of our sort of whole team meetings, our most regular sort of whole team meetings, well, we have the daily stand-up, so we're already kind of sort of doing something suggested in the book, and we really do keep those to 5 minutes, which is quite impressive when you've got over 20 people in the meeting. We managed to speak to everyone in 5 minutes, so I can attest to that working well. But sort of the ones that we do weekly with the whole team tend to be more around kind of box ticking and kind of making sure that things have happened that should have happened and what have you. And because of that, they perhaps tend not to be so engaging. So there may be things we could do around that. We have monthly meetings as well, and that I think hopefully they are a bit more interesting. We've sort of changed the format fairly recently to try and keep it a bit more interesting. And generally, the feedback we get on those is quite good. So
yeah. I think there is. I remember having, when I was not on the sort of the leadership team, you'd be sort of dragged into a meeting and sit there for 2 hours. You'd come out, well, that was a waste of time, isn't it? We haven't actually nothing that we've discussed is relevant to me. You called me in to tick me off for not doing something that I couldn't do because I was at this meeting. If I had those 2 hours to go and do what I was doing. So a key is, when you've got teams, is to really understand what they actually really think about the meeting. And I think doing a survey and talking to people and making an atmosphere where they can say, actually, our meetings are crap. I get no value out of them at all. Because a lot of us are scared of actually hearing that because we don't have an alternative. It's like, well, if you tell me it's crap, that's great, but we can't not have meetings, but if we understand what potentially is the issues, then we can start to deal with it. So I think, if we are in meetings where we're not where we want to be, talk to the people in those meetings and really get an honest answer from them. And sometimes it's difficult for you, if you're chairing the meeting, to get that honest answer. Maybe get somebody else to do the survey, to actually ask around and score it and come up with some, they may not come up with ideas of what to do, but they'll certainly tell you what they don't like. And then the next bit was of the misalignment of goals. So not having a goal in the first place, but actually the people in the room all having different agendas, different goals that are actually aiming for. And that's where you can get, I would say, the wrong type of conflict, that you get people that, and said page 33 there, the sort of, who is contributing most, and sometimes I've always found that's almost, while in this book, the contribution is the people that are actually adding value to it, there's also the dominating the meeting. I've been in meetings where there's been one or two people that are generally the high Ds or the high Is on the DISC profile, the dominant extrovert, so they will speak before they think. So they will actually just naturally, because that's the way they are, take over the meeting. And all your C's and S's, your compliant, correct, your introverted people will just sit there and sort of look into their hats. Okay, so there's the people that are contributing positively, but also the people that are actually dominating. And the meeting becomes their agenda and it's their meeting rather than the meeting that we're actually being into. Sabrina, have you come across that at all?
Yes, I think since I've been ill, I haven't really been involved in so many meetings. But reflecting back, I think that the challenge that we had was that the sort of 10-minute morning ones, I think they were fine. They didn't necessarily involve everybody, which was what was suggested, but it was the key people involved in what was happening that day. But I never was there for those. The ones that I remembered, the weekly strategic ones, I think the challenge we had there was we didn't actually have anyone who was a strong D. So no one seemed to sort of be prepared to control it or chair it, except possibly me. And as you know, I'm an I. So people got started on a subject which probably was important. In fact, I know there's no probably about it, that we did talk about important things, but the structure wasn't there. So the timing on particular issues went on a bit, and then we didn't actually get anything achieved on other things. And the meetings used to come to an end, and although people had been actioned to do things, we could quite often come back to the meeting the next week and they hadn't happened. Because having been on the time mastery last night, I mean, the big mistake we made was not actually setting a time or a deadline. I don't know about you, but we all work better to deadlines. And if you give somebody a box in which to put that task, it's more likely to get done. So yeah, now I know now that we've got more dynamic people on the team. We've got a big, hairy, audacious goal. We've got time limits. So these things are happening, even though I'm not necessarily there to be part of it.
Yeah. Cool. Good. So when you're having your meetings, then really, I think you're, because the other one I thought you might have said there was, you know, who's contributing most. You know, often it's you as the leader that's contributing most. The only person that's actually speaking is you. You know, you get nothing back from your team. I've had clients that, you know, get frustrated with that. They have a meeting and the only person that actually says anything, comes up with any ideas, is themselves. Yeah, and then it's almost goes, well, what's the point of having a meeting then? If the only person contributing to this meeting is me, you know, I might as well just send an email out. And that's what often they do, is just get fed up with meetings and, oh, I'll just communicate just by an email, because it's just broadcasting. It's not a discussion. So sometimes with that, I think you've got to sort of perhaps hold the mirror up and say, why? You know, why is it? You know, what environment have I created here that means that no one else is actually contributing? You know, and certainly disprofiling is a great way to see that. You know, if you are a high D or an I and your team are all C's and S's, there's a big danger that the only person's going to talk is you. So you've got to change that. You know, you've got to change that dynamic. You've got to slow down your pace to allow them to actually, you know, be able to talk. Because they, you know, it's not that they're bad people or anything like that. It's just C's and S's, you know, think before they speak. And while they're thinking, you're a D or an I, you know, you'll end up talking in that empty space. So you've got to learn to ask a question and then shut up. You know, as they say, 2 ears, 1 mouth. You know, use them in that ratio. Another good test is the cup of coffee test. Have you ever done that? So everyone comes into the meeting with a cup of coffee. Yeah, and the winner is whoever drinks their coffee first. So, you know, so if you're the one with cold coffee at the end of the meeting, yeah, you haven't run the meeting particularly well. So just try that one once. See who drinks their coffee first, because they're not contributing enough. What
happens if you've got members who don't drink tea or coffee, only water? It's
fine. Just whatever drink it might be. If they drink it all, then well, if they don't drink it, then they're perhaps contributing too much to the meeting. Good. So the next bit was I think page 43. So when it rains, and I think I've had a number of these cases in the last sort of 6 months, I think, with clients. You know, just when you think it can't get any worse, you know, somebody comes in and says, "I'm leaving." Just had one. The financial controllers handed their notice in just at the wrong time. You know, it's like all these challenges, all these problems, and then the financial controller says they're off. It's like, oh God, just another thing. But you know, sometimes, you know, these things happen, I think, for a reason. You know, they are the change that's needed. You know, if things are a bit stale, if things are a bit not quite as they are, you know, use the time where people do leave for positive change. You know, really look at that person and say, you know, okay, so that they will hopefully have some positive attributes, but look at their negative attributes. What is it that they lacked? You know, and therefore, if they're lacking that, then perhaps the next person we can make sure brings in that extra dynamic. Or you change it around. You know, maybe they were the ones that were dominating the meeting. Maybe the ones they weren't contributing. You know, make sure that, you know, as you move things because of that person going, that, you know, you're thinking about that. Where do you want these meetings to be in the future? And that to me is, I mean, I say this all, you know, at the start of every meeting, the be do have. You know, the have is the most important. So if you want to have great meetings, you've got to have a vision of what a great meeting looks like. Okay, because if you don't have that vision, then it's very difficult to create it. That's why in the book, you know, Will goes off and watches films, watches TV, talks to other people, because he didn't know what a good meeting would look like. You know, he questioned. He knew what a bad one looked like, but he questioned it and then used these outside analogies to actually help come up with that structure. So Bruce, I think that might resonate with you, that particular one at the moment.
Why did you say that?
Well, we might have lost a couple of key people in the last few months.
Yeah. And I guess for us also, we've over the years had very low staff turnover. So we've had quite a few people go, although a lot of the people that have left have been, you know, quite junior. So perhaps not such a big issue. We've certainly got one guy who's going to be leaving soon, and he's got a fair amount of experience. So thinking about how we can turn that into a positive going forward. That's obviously the right mindset to have, and everybody has sort of good sides and positive sides. So thinking about how we can improve upon any negatives is obviously a good thing to be doing.
Good. So if we look at up to page 68, then in that sort of first part on the I suppose it's the sort of setting the scene, as it were. Is there any sort of particular, chapter, page that sort of stuck out for you guys?
I think I don't know about a particular chapter, but Kevin, you know the issues that we have within A.E. Roberts, but I was very interested by the way in the fable that the managing director himself, Casey, I think was his name, wasn't it? How he developed as well, and matured and gained confidence and saw the whole picture. And in fact, all the characters, once the structure of the meetings was better, it brought out the good in each individual, and I think that's essential and very important to make the best of your people as well as the situation.
And I think if you're strong enough to question it, and to look at it and bring the team in and say, look, guys, how are we enjoying these meetings? On a scale of 1 to 10, and it doesn't matter what score they come up with, be it 2 or be it 9, you can say, okay, fine. So how could we make it 1 point better? what would it need to contain in order to be that little bit better than it is at the moment? And everyone will come up with an idea. Even if it says, you know, oh, we need better coffee. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, but it just goes back to that mindset of continual, never-ending improvement. You know, run it for a few weeks, a few months, however often you're doing it. Right, guys, you know, let's review just not the content of the meeting, not, you know, what we've been talking about, the structure of the meeting. Is it the right time of day? You know, is it the right time of the week? Are the right people here? You know, there's almost that sort of once a quarter, just have a review and it's just a discussion about the meeting itself. Yeah, because that's really what Will did in this was, you know, he took an hour of the first part of the meeting to discuss how we run the meeting.
Yes.
You know, and if you don't do that, then well, how are you going to be better? It's a, you know, the meeting is another cog in the machine of running a business. Yeah, it's no different to your production line. You know, if your production line wasn't efficient, you'd look at it, you'd review it, you'd try and improve it. So, you know, be brave enough to be, because the hardest thing I think with this, you know, is actually being honest and saying, yeah, our meetings aren't as good as they could be.
I've identified the will in our business, I believe, and I've already mentioned that this is a gripping business book, and I'm going to pass it to her. And I think because one of the difficulties we have is having a leader that is too busy, he thinks, to read the books. Therefore, we're all talking about this, but we have to we have to act it rather, do it rather than speak it, and show the benefits of these books. So I'm finding the right people to read the right ones and hoping that that's going to filter through.
The snowball effect, yeah. Cool. Anything else from anyone else in that sort of first up to page sort of 68? Any other things that step out? Should we move on to part 4 and the actions? Okay, cool. So within sort of this next part, then I think it was page 72 that jumped out for me was how easy it is to lose control of a meeting. You know, we get into that meeting, maybe we've got the agenda, maybe we've done all this work, and suddenly, you know, we end up down a blind alley. Yeah, I think this was about the picnic, wasn't it? Yeah. And all we seem to do is talk about the bloody picnic. Yeah. So it's about the management training and summer picnic, and suddenly, you know, half an hour of the meetings just disappeared in minutia. Yeah, and often, yeah, I think, yeah, looking back on some meetings I've been in that did that, the minutia was far more exciting than the agenda of the meeting itself. It's like, oh, a little bit of light relief now. We can talk about the picnic. Not about the sort of, you know, the boring stuff that we have been talking about. So have you noticed that at all, Gary, about how meetings can just, you know, how the hell did we get on and have, you know, if you think about, you know, certainly at board level, but even at management level, you know, the hourly rate of the people in the room, how much that meeting is costing. Yeah, and you're in a meeting discussing saving, you know, 200 quid on the picnic. It just doesn't make any sense. But have you got any experience of that?
Oh yeah, a couple of examples. Like you say, it's not a picnic, but Christmas parties.
Yeah,
party was always a good one. Like you say, you know, I used to work for Belanius. We used to have about 220 people at the Christmas party, including partners. and the amount of time spent on the table plan.
Oh God, yeah.
I had requests from everybody,
Yeah.
all the managers,
yeah,
office juniors, even to the MD. And like you say, we'd have meetings, and literally you'd spend days with managers trying to, sort out who can sit where people can't sit here, and so that was always a good one.
Yeah.
But it's always the same. Like you say, you go off on a tangent. You say you're in a meeting for 4 hours, and 2 of that was for the Christmas party. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it does. When you sort of start thinking about it, you think, oh God, yeah, how many of those did we have? But the interesting thing about the Christmas party is, it sort of reinforces the fact that if there's a goal and a timeline and a deadline, then it spurs you into action. The Christmas party must go ahead. It's got to be on that particular date. We want it to be a success, and therefore everyone chips in. Everyone's motivated to solve the Christmas party. So, we can do it, at a minutiae scale. What we want to be able to do is translate that into, well, what's the equivalent for the business for the Christmas party? Is it achieving that sales target by, the 31st of December? And can we put that amount of focus and planning and direction and everyone coming on board, for something as simple as a Christmas party, into the bigger picture, into the business? So that's to me why, and I sort of said in the time management that, clarity of goals is so important. The clearer you are with the goal, that you're aiming for, then everything else fits into place. If you haven't got clarity around the goal, then that's why you'll get sidetracked and then just deal with Christmas parties. So I'm glad it wasn't just me, Gary, with with the Christmas party one. So anything, just, I mean, if you flick through, if there's anything sort of comes out in these mini chapters, that jumped out at you, please do, just bring it up and we can sort of talk about that. The next one I jumped out for me was 102, which seems like quite a bit of the book which I didn't resonate with me, but doesn't mean it won't resonate with you guys. I did like his, as it said, page 91, when he goes and goes around to his, or he rents when Harry met Sally, one of his parents' favourites, and that's a paragraph. Unbelievable thought. At work, we take longer than that to summarise just a week's worth of business activity, and even then, we never seem to resolve anything. So that realisation that in a movie, an hour and a half movie, you can be gripped, you can be compelled, and you can get so much across. Yet in an hour and a half board meeting, we don't even seem to scrape the surface. That time just seems to sort of disappear in a meeting, so quickly. Yet in a film, everything is planned and produced so that you get the biggest impact in the shortest period of time. So
that resonated with me particularly, thinking back to on the old site and the Monday evening weekly meetings, and I think we sorry, I've lost my train of thought, but you said about things resonating. I really like the analogies with the movies, because of what we lacked there was a structure, and the advice in this book about the different lengths of meetings and how to handle them, it's very punchy, and that was definitely what we needed, and not these rambling weekly meetings.
No, I think that's a good point. Like you say, a decent meeting always has some sort of structure, but for a lot of people, you never taught that. It's always by experience, or like you say, situations like these are book clubs, and you talk. A lot of the times, like, okay, let's have a meeting. That just means for a lot of people, let's just get together and chat. So like I say, to put some structure to the meeting, so you have some sort of format to make a decision at the end, is pretty good.
Yeah. And that analogy with a film, that sort of, well, look, every film has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's built like that from the start. It's not just some random stuff put together and let's see if we can cut it down and cram it into an hour and a half. It's planned out. This will be an hour and a half long, and then it's structured to fit that. How often do we actually set our meetings to do the same?
He particularly suggests engaging everybody in the first 10 minutes, which I thought was an excellent idea. So much is about the way you present it, and the attitude of the presenter, well, not the presenter, but the opener. There was so much. I mean, you said any particular chapter or whatever. I just felt, this is why I found it so gripping, that the whole thing was every page there was a gem of information, and I could see all the things that we'd been doing wrong and how to put it right.
And I think again, page 102 was that realization that length actually isn't an issue. It's because some people, our meetings are too long. They take 4 hours. Well, a 4-hour meeting actually can be really good. Like a 4-hour film can be really good. It can be absolutely atrocious. If it's, I'm trying to think of a really bad 4-hour film that I've watched in the past, but but certainly if you think about, we've just been rewatching the Line of Duty series.
Yes, us too.
And it's just 6 hours. One of the sort of episodes is 6 hours long. 6-hour sessions, and and it is gripping and compelling right the way through. It's not an issue of the length. It's what you put into that and the structure of it, and how you're leading the participants through it. And so I think that was that part of it. Then it was the sort of movies have conflict. And these sort of discussion that because people, not all movies have a conflict, and you actually think about it, they do. There's an internal conflict, there might be an external conflict, there might be a bit of both, but there's a challenge to overcome. That's what makes films and TVs interesting. There's something that we need to overcome to move forwards, and it is, I think, sometimes in the meetings, it's that there's a fear of that. There's a fear of actually finding the challenge, facing it head on and talking about it, because we go back to that fear of failure. What if my sales figures haven't achieved the target? Oh God, I've got to come up with loads of excuses as to why it hasn't, or bat away the fact that it could be a serious issue. Sometimes I think people are fearful to ask for help. If you've got let's say you've got a marketing director that you've taken on, that the KPIs show that the leads are down. Does the marketing director turn around and say, do you what, I've run out of ideas. I'm lost. I don't know how to fix this. How many marketing directors would be strong enough to actually say that? Their fear would be, well, if I say that, I'm going to be sacked. Yeah, but that to me is like, you know, if you go back to the, you know, a lot of films is, you know, the hero sort of starts a story, starts really well, and then at some point fails. You know, it's almost like comes to the end. You know, like Rocky. You know, Rocky's down on the canvas. You know, he's not. Is he going to get up? And then he has one last push to get up. You know, goes back into training and bounces back stronger. You know, Luke Skywalker, when he sort of, you know, gets his hand chopped off by, you know, Darth Vader, goes off with Yoda to do more training. You know, the compelling story is that willingness to understand that we are not doing as well as we should. That, you know, we've failed. Yeah, but failure is only failure if we give up. So are we, you know, are we looking, you know, is there enough conflict in the meetings? You know, where is the conflict? You know, not necessarily say between people and departments, you know, because often that is obvious. It's where's the conflict within an individual? Where's the person that is actually struggling? And I certainly know from experience that I've seen it, but I've felt uncomfortable about bringing it up at that meeting. Laying the dirty laundry out in front of everybody else. And there's I think there's a challenge there. Is the meeting the time to do that, or do I have to make a note and actually deal with that outside the meeting? What's your thoughts on that, Bruce? Does that ring true for you? Was it?
Well, I'm sort of questioning why you're asking me that question now. I'm thinking, what is it about our meetings that?
I've only got 4 people to choose from, Bruce.
Yeah.
And Sabrina's and Gary have just chipped in, so it was you and Andy, and you're in the same company, so it didn't really matter.
Not really. No. Yeah, don't really have anything to say on that.
Okay. It's looking at that, you know, is it an internal conflict within an individual? Yeah, is it a conflict between two departments that they're not? You know, you can generally see by the body language. You know, you've got perhaps, you know, the operations and sales guys that, yeah, they're just not communicating, and they're just sort of sitting there, arms crossed. And what are you not saying, guys? You know, come on, this has got to be a safe environment for us to have these discussions. You know, and this is where you go back into Lencioni's, you know, first book, you know, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You know, a team has got to be built on trust. If we all trust each other, then there shouldn't be a fear of conflict.
Oh, we certainly, for instance, so our board meetings, we've obviously got, you know, some different personality types, and you know, sometimes I think just based on that, you know, particular personality types, and individuals might not want to say what they really want to say, and I find I just want to know. I just want to know, and I find it frustrating if I can't get, you know, I just want to know, what do you think? And if they're skirting around the issue and not really saying, it's like, look, tell me, and they're still not saying. I just find that very frustrating.
Yeah.
And then, you don't really want to find out afterwards. We've made a decision, and then they're not happy with it. Well, why didn't you say at the time?
Yeah.
We want to debate it, and I guess the challenge is learning the skills to be able to extract that information for all the different personality types, I suppose. Then how do you set the scene and ask the questions, set environment, so you get the input you need at the right time? In my experience, it can be very challenging sometimes.
I think that's really what I was getting from it. A lot of people don't see it. You know, they're not paying attention to the people in the room. You know, again, if you're sitting there talking all the time, you're not seeing the conflict that's going on around you. You know, so it's putting things on the table, taking a step back, allowing the team to talk about it, and then observing, you know, observing body language. Sometimes it's things that aren't said that are as important as things are said. You know, where is that conflict? You know, and if there is, you know, as he says a bit later in the book, was, you know, you've got to dig for it. Because if there isn't conflict, if there isn't a challenge with people, if everything's fine, well, to me, they're not trying hard enough. You know, if you've got an athlete that is going out there and smashing it every single day, you know, then you think, well, you're not really trying hard enough, are you? You're not setting your goals big enough. You know, most athletes, when they go out, you know, will fail 9 times out of 10. You know, I know when I play golf, you know, they say, you know, you generally play to better your handicap 1 in 10 rounds. That's what keeps you going back. You know, you keep motivated because you're not achieving. So we've got to look for that, dig for that conflict. You know, where is it? You know, and if it's not there, then perhaps we've got to set higher goals, higher expectations, and get that tension right. You know, not too tough, too much where it snaps and it all breaks down, but not too loose where it's all saggy and nothing happens. So, and then page 118 was, you know, I think Sabrina, you talked about that, you know, setting the scene, you know, that first 10 minutes, you know, that intro to the meeting. Right, this meeting, yeah, what I want to get out of this meeting is this. What we're going to talk about this meeting is this. The point of the day is this. And I certainly, you know, I do, you know, I was looking at that thinking, yeah, I think daily meetings, weekly meetings, I think that probably comes because that's what you're talking about. I think sometimes, you know, when I've been in, you know, board meetings and high level meetings, perhaps we don't do that enough. You know, we don't set the overlying, you know, focus for that meeting. You know, and it was a bit of a BFO, blinding flash of the obvious for me was, you know, when we set a 90-day plan, you know, when I get you to do your 90-day plans, there's always a quarterly theme and a number one goal. Doesn't matter what's in the plan, there's a focus on, right, the focus for this quarter is this particular area, this particular topic, this particular goal. And maybe that's something that, you know, bringing into board meetings, you know, should be done as well. You know, really set that opening 10 minutes. Because I know, you know, guys, I'm sort of thinking of our meetings. You know, we have the agenda and we go straight into finance, sales, operations, people. That's our structure. But we don't really sort of set, right, well, what's the theme of this meeting? You know, what do we want to get out of this meeting? And the danger then is it just becomes a repetition of the same process. You know, and that's what I just reminded me and thought, yeah, I think there is an element of that would perhaps, I think, bring in that sense of drama back into the meeting if we do it on that basis. So maybe, Bruce, can you make a note of that one and
yeah, I've made a note.
Put that for our next board meeting, please. And then we go into sort of the final part, which is sort of the coming up with a structure, you know, and the timing of the meetings. That, you know, if you look in the movies, you've got the 10-15 minute headlines, you know, boom, get the information across. You've got the half an hour to an hour sort of meeting. You've got the longer meeting, and then you've got the box set, you know, and that sort of structure for each one. So how are we doing for time? Oh, blimey, cool. There we go. And so the last part of the book then really is sort of the summary of, you know, what do we do, and so there's two parts. There's drama and there's structure. This is what we've got to have in all meetings. So for the drama was the hook, the purpose of the meeting, the opening gambit, which the chair of the meeting should put in. Right, this is the hot topic of the day. This is what we're going to discuss. This is the main. We'll have the structure, but this is really what I want to move this meeting forwards. Yeah, and then the leader of the meeting's job is to mine for that conflict. What's holding us back? What's not being said? Yeah, is everybody on the same page? Have I got that energy in that meeting, in that room? And I think, Andy, it'd be interesting, when you do your toolbox, your 5 minutes meetings, do you think that you do this well? And everyone leaves that meeting in a really good place?
Well, the 5-minute meetings, I mean, it's literally just kind of a check-in, what project you're working on today. I think they do work quite well from the perspective, at the moment, most of us are working from home. So it's partly just a point of practicality to make sure nobody's off sick or anything like that. And actually, we encourage people, if they're available a few minutes early, they can join the meeting a bit early, have a bit of a chat, and so it's just kind of the social aspect to it as well. But once we actually start the meeting, it's very, very focused. It's literally just like, Alex, what are you doing today? Asa, what are you doing today? And just bam, 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 takes literally.
So the hook is nice and simple then, isn't it? It's right.
People know what to expect. So I don't introduce it because we do it every day. So it doesn't really need an introduction. If I took 10 minutes to introduce it, the meeting would be 3 times longer.
Yeah, no. I think the hook in that case is right. We're talking about projects. Yeah, I want to know where you are with your projects. What the successes have been and what's holding you back.
Yeah, we don't even go into that level of detail, but yeah.
So that's that sort of even down at the 5-minute meeting, I think you can put that real purpose, that clarity of right, this meeting is here to discuss this. This is what I want to get out of it, and then make sure that you are getting that interaction with the team, and they are ideally at the end of every meeting you want them to leave in a better place than when they came in. If you can do that, you're pretty much you're doing it well. If they all leave feeling fed up and miserable and in a worse place, then that hasn't been a successful meeting. Anything else on drama? What about any questions? Anything you picked up and the sort of creating drama into meetings? No? Oh, okay. And then the final one was the contextual structure. So, thinking of these, dealing with the meetings in the right things in the right meetings. And certainly where there isn't structure, this is where our weekly meeting becomes a 2-hour, 3-hour meeting. Yeah, and I've been in a number of those, and where you set an hour aside to talk about weekly stuff, and suddenly, 2-3 hours have disappeared because you've gone off piste. You've started dealing with monthly strategic stuff. You've probably gone into quarterly stuff. You might have gone into daily stuff. You've been hijacked and gone down a rabbit hole somewhere. Okay, so it's really, be really clear right, this meeting, this is what it should look like. This is the time. Once Andy, where he's been doing this for a number of times, you get into a pattern, a routine where you can get things done in that particular time. The weekly meeting is probably the one that can get hijacked the most. That hour can become 2 hours. So you've got to really look at it and say, why is it? What's happening? And don't be prepared. Don't be afraid. I think at those meetings to say, let's take that offline. Let's deal with that outside the meeting. It's not something. Do we need all of us here to discuss that? Okay, and again, as a leader, you've got to monitor this and see what that dynamic of the room is going. Sometimes actually you've got all the right people. It is the right thing to do. Spend the time. Shall we, continue this meeting after the hour to discuss that particular topic? But often it's not the right place to do it. Okay, so you've got to be, you need to be that timekeeper, of the meeting and have control over it. Don't lose control of that meeting. And then the monthly strategic, is to keep it at a strategic level. Don't go down into the minutiae of the day-to-day stuff, talking about, projects and things that should have been dealt with at the weekly meeting. Keep it at that higher level, sort of, right. Go again. That's why you need the 90-day plan. Let's go back to the 90-day plan. Where are we with our activities for that? Let's keep it at the level it needs to be. And then the quarterly offsite, is really that sort of night, where you do set the 90-day plan. You're really thinking about the longer term aspect of things. And then I think you said, once a year, you have a yearly one as well. But to me, that's an extension of the quarterly one. One quarter is even further ahead than the others. So. Good. So, any final comments on the book for you, Sabrina?
Well, it's certainly one I would recommend to everybody. It's exciting. There's so much in that I would like to see happening within our organisation. Some of it is already, but it's focused precisely on what one needs to do, and I think that's such a help.
Yep. Cool. Good. Bruce?
Really good book. Definitely got some ideas on how we can tweak what we're already doing, and always keen to try and inject a bit more excitement and energy into the meetings. So I've got some ideas now.
Yeah.
So, it's really good.
Cool. Good. Carrie?
Yeah, no, really good book. Really enjoyed it. Like Bruce said, give some ideas. How to improve meetings, make them maybe a bit more enjoyable for everyone, and give some structure to different types of meeting as well. Try and have goals for each meeting rather than just, okay, let's just have a meeting.
Yeah, that to me, the biggest lesson from this was that breaking it down, that it's not about the number of meetings. You should have more meetings, but they should be specific and there for a purpose. That 5-minute daily meeting, means that the weekly meetings don't need to go on as long. So if you're not doing the daily ones, then you're going to be dealing with all those day-to-day issues, in the weekly meeting. So, cool, Andy.
Yeah, good book, good mix of narrative and clear, actionable insights. So good one.
Cool, good. So next meeting is next book club is on the 30th of October, so end of October. It's always the last Friday, 8 o'clock. I haven't decided what book to do yet, because I thought I would actually ask you guys. So what area of the business would you like to sort of deal with? Because you guys are on the sort of the call the most. So I thought rather than me come up with something that might not be a relevant area, is there a particular area you would like to focus on next month? Sabrina?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. Right, you mentioned yesterday the book, and I'm not suggesting this one, but if you know another one along the same lines, like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
That would be one thought.
That's very good. Yeah, is another classic well worth reading. Bruce?
I know Andy's read a book recently. It's all about the why, and I'm sort of intrigued a bit more on that. We're planning to do a bit more work on what is our purpose, or above that, why are we here as a business?
Yeah. So another Simon Sinek, start with why. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that over the years we've all sort of struggled with a bit, and sort of go round circles, and it's so sort of fundamental that that'd be good.
Okay.
Well, Andy's already read one book on that.
And I'm halfway through a second one as well, because I'm reading Finding Your Why as well.
Right. Is that from Simon as well?
Yes, but with collaboration from some others too.
Yeah, because I know he did a follow-up book, because Start With Why is great. It tells you the concept, but it doesn't actually help you actually come up with what your why is.
Yes. And
I knew he was writing a book to help you actually come up with examples of what good whys are and how to actually find it. So
I don't know how well Finding Your Why would work as a book club book, because it is it's very much kind of a sort of a handbook for running facilitation sessions to find people's whys. So it's intended that, as the facilitator, you read these chapters, and as the person finding a why, or the team finding a why, you read those chapters. And it just, I mean, we could do it as a book club book, but it might not work quite so well.
Yeah. No, I think, it's more of a workshop book, isn't it? To help with things. Cool. Good. So interesting. I think 7 Habits to me is a classic. It's one that everybody should read. And I think there are bits in there that relate right the way across the board. So I'm going to choose that one, Sabrina.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
But what I am going to do is I'm probably going to do that over a couple of months, because it is a big book.
A long book.
Yes.
And
I agree.
And there's no way I can get through the whole thing in an hour. Anyway, so it's almost that you need an hour on each chapter. But what I'll look at it, and I'll see if I can break it down into 2 or 3. Yeah, if I can do it in 2, it might be 3, the next 3 book clubs. So we might do that over the next few months, because it's well worth reading in a bit more depth.
Out of interest, how many people have already read it?
No.
I've got a copy, but I've never read it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Have you read it, Andy?
I have read it, but quite a long time ago, so I don't mind reading it again.
It's definitely worth dusting off. There is an abridged version as well, which is on audio, and it's an hour long. So, and that gives you an overview of it. So that's quite nice for people that just perhaps are a bit late to the book club. So that's the one we'll do. I will get Jane to sort. So if you've got a copy of that, have you, Gary? Okay, cool. Andy, you've got a copy. Bruce?
Yeah, I'll have a copy, please.
So Bruce, I'll send Bruce a copy, and Sabrina.
Yes, please. I'd like one. I thought I had one, but I couldn't find it last night.
Okay, that's fine.
I only have the audio book. I don't actually have a hard copy of it. So.
Do you want the hard copy, Andy?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, cool. I'll get Jane to sort that out for everybody, and we will see you next time for book club on the 30th. Just so you know, the next mastery workshops are all there. So we've got marketing and finance are the 2 that are coming up in October. So please do book yourself onto those, or get team members to come along, and it'd be great to see you then. So have a super weekend, and enjoy reading the next book. So, take care. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Kevin. Take care. Bye-bye.